So welcome to the Node.js Node API team meeting for September 16th, 2022. We'll follow our standard approach of looking at the issues tagged for milestone 11. Before we do that, does anybody have any announcements or info they'd like to share?
Nothing.
I'll just add my regular message to anybody who might be watching the videos that Collaborator Summit in Dublin is coming up. Couple days, I think it's the 1st and 2nd before the NodeConf EU conference. So if you're in the area and can make it, that should hopefully be a good time to get together with collaborators. It's geared towards collaborators, so not necessarily like an intro, but if you're thinking that you want to become a collaborator and sort of listening in and learning, it's still a good opportunity. So you can check out, there's an issue in the OpenJS Foundation repo under Summit if you want to find more info on it. Okay, so I will move on and share my screen. Let me get to milestone 11. I will share that. And let me see, this one I think is the right one. Okay, so this is what we have tagged. The first one, I think we added last time, document to check for how to check for memory leaks in add-on. We discussed this last time. I didn't have a chance to take a look at it. I don't see any comments, so I'm guessing nobody else has, but that's a good one for us to go in and provide some info on checking for memory leaks and add-ons.
How did this one come about? Like, what was the discussion or issue or whatever that created this?
There was this issue where somebody reported that there was a memory leak. And the answer really is yes, it will be reported because add-ons we don't actually unload add-ons, not necessarily Node API specific. So the idea was like if we add some information maybe on how you check for memory leaks for add-ons, and then mention like, oh, by the way, you're always going to see this one because this is the way it works, right? That's where that came from.
I see. Okay.
So we do have this and actually maybe I should have put it there. I actually think we were thinking of putting it into the Node API docs itself. So that developers would find it. So find a place in there that made sense and add in maybe some pointers. There is a contributing doc that has some info, but that's more for Node contributors versus developers. So we thought it would be best in the Node docs itself.
Right. Okay.
Okay, adding the C list of non-C language bindings. I think Nicola's was planning to work on that, but he's been out, so I don't think there's any updates on that one. Better coverage of Node API and YouTube. So I think Nick also volunteered. So again, he's been out, so no progress on that one. I don't think there's anything to talk about unless anybody else is thinking of doing anything there or has any updates. The next one is drive towards full coverage. I don't know, Jack, if there's any updates on that one.
I didn't add any new tests this week, but I got some comments from Chinjal. I'll probably I'll make those changes. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, so there's a few comments on these tests, or
yeah, I think it was the second one. Yeah,
just one. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So if we can just review and help get those ones landed, that'll be good. I'll try and block some time off myself, but other people can take a look too. That'd be great. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just need some time to pick up the memories of the directory function, so I didn't have a comment on those two that are on the directory function side. So I will try to find a time to look into these two PRs that are testing the directory function. So yeah, right.
Okay, thanks. That'll be great. I'll if you're gonna take a look, I'll assume you take a look, and if I do get time, try and spend it more looking at your PR and core.
Thank you.
Okay, see if I can I get back to where we were? No, here we were. Okay. Okay, stale issues. So looking at the stale issues, I know I added one new one, which was this one. I think there were some comments. I'd asked if it was covered, but it seemed like we still needed some thought on how we would integrate it with Node add-on API.
Yeah, so there was that core PR. Was there something that we needed to do in Node add-on API in order for this to, because I remember, yeah, the GendaCast was working on that one.
Yeah, like that one
Yeah.
landed. So like we thought it was addressed by that, but I asked, and it, like from the discussion, it sounded like it didn't fix it in Node add-on API. So it sounds like there's still something we need to look at and understand in terms of that same issue in Node add-on API. Maybe we need to do something to leverage what was added in.
Okay.
Also off by default, so it's like figuring out, is it just that like the flag needs to be specified to turn it on?
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe we can find a time to turn it on by default, so that since that behavior will be breaking and it needs to be released in a December major version. So maybe it's just it's just about time to do it before, let's say before 19 or before 20, so that we can get it released and turn it on by default in the next year.
Right, I guess it's still like this, even though Node's doing a December major, we haven't really been breaking APIs, right? I mean, the promise is it won't break them across December majors even.
Yeah, that depends on how, let's say if it's a bug, then how do people expect if any bug can be fixed, even though it can be breaking?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying that, like, I guess this one I'd have to remember if this is, we should just turn it on. Like it, like you are right that like there's still bug fixes which can affect code, but it's, is it likely to affect things where like it runs on one version and does the right thing, but doesn't run on the other version and do the right thing?
Yeah, right. We can, like say, we can backport it to the old versions.
Right, and I guess that's the other approach too, is like, yeah, it's a bug, so we're going to go backwards.
Anyway, I think I need to take a look into this to see how the flags can resolve the problem, how the flag can alleviate the problem here, and
Right.
if the default value switching can be the solution here. If so, we can decide what we can do next as the next step, or if we need to do anything in the Node add-on API to.
Right, or even if like in Node add-on API, we could enable the switch by default or something.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so yeah, if you can take a look at that and put a proposal.
Is this switch a compile time switch or a runtime switch that we're
No,
talking
it's
about?
currently it's a Node.js command line flags, so it has been turned on by the end user. So add-on authors has nothing to do with the flag since they cannot set the flag after the Node.js has been launched.
Right.
So like
Okay.
another thing might be like I know as part of the other PR, Vladimir is looking at adding in the options. Like it would be like a command that you can set options as a add-on developer.
Yeah, that's a great idea to facilitate the feature flags.
Yeah. Because this seems like another good thing where you could just say like, yeah, in your code, you can say, turn it on. And, maybe it'll tell you whether or not the versions you're targeting support it. And if it does, then you good. And we wouldn't necessarily affect somebody's.
Yeah, in that way, we can also backport this to all the LTS version lines.
Yeah. Yeah, along with node version and it makes the story kind of all hang together there. So
Yeah.
okay, but yeah, it looks like you're going to plan to take a look at it, and that'll help us understand kind of what the next step might be. This one.
Yes, I was also sort of trying to catch up a little bit on this one as well. And this is because we do a static cast of that -1 for an unknown type. And I think there's a PR that was opened to resolve it. Yeah, if you go to the pull requests.
Sorry, was it on?
Yeah, if you go back to that issue you were just at,
Okay,
building,
sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and then just go to pull requests. Right. I don't think he actually linked. Yeah, he just linked to the issue again. But if you just go to the list of the pull requests on Node add-on API.
Okay, sorry, go here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I think the last one there.
Right. Yep.
And then I think there was some discussion here talking about removing the concept of a node type. And to me, that actually makes the most sense because in the underlying node API, there is no concept of an unknown type. So it makes sense in my mind to not have one either in node add-on API. So then the question that I have is why originally was there a thought of having an unknown type in node add-on API?
I don't think we could remember why or the history. We had in the chat, I think we came to the same conclusion as you, like it just makes sense to remove that unknown type, and we couldn't think of how that would affect any working code. So
right.
Our comment there, like this comment that I put in there was like, we discussed that, we basically agreed that, yeah, we should just remove it and refactor the code to do that. I think we were just, seeing if Zach was maybe going to, incorporate that into his PR. I think at this point, there hasn't been any responses for a number of months. So the next step is really just from somebody else to pick up and create a PR that does that alternate approach and to move forward from there.
Okay. And just another thing for my clarification, once you create a typed array with a specific length, can that length change? My thought is no.
I don't think so either, no.
Okay, because I think in like the default new constructor with no arguments just uses a length of 0. So I can't imagine what you would be able to do with a typed array of length 0. And if that's the case, then like the type really shouldn't even matter, right? So then that's why I think it'd be okay to use just some default type, because you really wouldn't be able to interact with the typed array anyways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that was, I can't remember the details now, but it was along the lines of like, how could you be usefully using this?
Right.
Right. And it's, I mean, maybe when we look at it more carefully, it might be related to like doing a you know, like copies or something like that. But yeah, no, I it just seemed like somehow we created it that way, but just didn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense to us now.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
let's actually go for removing it, and maybe that'll remind us that there's actually problems, but we couldn't think of anyone looking at the code from the outside.
Okay. Would it be worthwhile to put like a compile time warning if you use the new constructor without a type, and we just say that we're defaulting it to int 8?
That's probably not a bad idea. Yeah, like just give, yeah.
Right,
Or a
because if it's a
deprecation,
warning, yeah, because a warning, then it wouldn't break any existing code, at least from compiling. So, all right. This seems like a simple enough thing that I could be able to work on then.
Okay. You want me to make a comment that you were going to take a look at? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see if we can get back to. So that was this one. Yeah, okay, that was that one. This one. This one, I think we've been waiting for you to come back and take a look at it.
Right. So trying to figure out again what was happening on this one. If I recall, they're trying to, there's a connection between releasing the thread safe function, and if you have an object that holds a TSFN and you want to release at destruction time or something like that. If TFSN is held longer in time than objects which contain the TSFN are created and destroyed on the fly, there must be a way to properly release a function that is a member of an object inside the object's destructor. I may need to get additional clarification from this, because I think multiple people have been talking on this one. Then
there are a few people like in the. It's been around for a little while, but yeah, so there's.
Yeah, I have to take another look at this and see what's going on then.
Okay, so yeah, if you can. It seemed like you had the context at one point, so we're like, we'll defer till then. Till you get back, and then this one, I know Vladimir's been working on the this one, and there was an example I think that he's got in. Where was it? Node add-on. Apples, right. So I think it's probably landed, but he'd written an example to show that, as I remember, but he was going to add, we're leaving this open because he was also going to add like a another example, like I can't remember if he did the node add-on example or the raw node API one, but he was going to do the other one as well. So I don't think there's necessarily anything to talk about on that one. And that takes us to all of the stale issues. Thanks for everybody who's looking at the different ones there. Tracking issues for modules that we noticed have been ported. Don't see anything new. I don't know if while you're away though, Kevin, it's interesting that most of the sort of alternate JavaScript engines are implementing Node API. So that's quite interesting, like Dino and Bun and all those. So I think it's hopefully a validation that, you know, what we've got here is fairly agnostic, and it seems to be working. We haven't heard any complaints about the implementations in the other ones either. So. Enable debug for testing for add-ons, haven't done. And then, okay, so burning down the issues in the repo. So I don't know if there's any in particular that this is probably.
There was one in Node add-on API that an issue that I was working with someone. It's the segmentation faults, inconsistent errors. It has a little blue line.
Right. Yeah, this one.
Yeah, so this is the one that I was sort of trying to figure out what was going on. And the original poster actually merged his PR into master. So I don't know if they were able to identify what the problem was, or if they're just accepting the limitation that this
Right.
whatever this issue was. So I guess I'm just sort of waiting to hear back from them on that. Just wanting to give an update because that's sort of what I was working on before I left.
Right. Okay. So yeah, so that's good to see you've got a comment, and so we'll hopefully just hear back. Okay. Any others? I'm just looking there. There doesn't seem to be anything new or specific in terms of the Node add-on API issues. Any others that you want to bring up?
The issue in the Node add-on API number is 1197 handle scope, the one about the handle scope. Sorry, and it's the no, it's the page one.
Sorry, page. Okay, sorry. Page one. Which one was it? Sorry, you said 797, 1197. This one.
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I find that people are mistakenly think that the method signature as the usage example here, so that is to say, you can see the link referenced in the opening.
Sorry, this one right here?
Open the,
yeah. You can open this link.
Yeah.
And you can see that we don't have any examples in this document. And people may mistakenly take the code here as the example, and they seems to be constructing the handle scope with these lines of code, which is not correct, since it's just the declaration of the constructor, which is not supposed to be used in place in the code. And they should follow the C++ convention to construct the handle scope. Let's say with the in-place constructing, I posted in the back in the issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I posted in the I posted an example of how to construct a handle scope here.
Yeah.
So this, I just found that maybe our documentation might somewhat be misleading to newcomers, especially for those new to C++, that they cannot distinguish the function declaration with the actual usage example. So maybe we should add examples for each of the function, or we should clarify that the code snippet in the documentation is just the declaration of the function, which is not how people should use it directly.
Right.
So so that's my ideas how we can improve the document.
I think it would be worthwhile just to add a simple example. But what I'm sort of thinking is, what would be a good example to show when someone needs to explicitly create a new handle scope? You know, because like if you think about, just you say you have a native function that you put onto your module exports or whatever, it would be really simple just to add that handle scope creation in your function. But I don't think that would actually signify like a good use case of when the handle scope needs to be made. So what would be a good use case for when a handle scope needs to be made? And then I think then we can create a document, update the documentation to provide that example. And I can't think of one. So maybe if
I think the one that comes to my mind is you've got a long loop.
Yeah, I think the loop is a perfect example for this.
Okay.
Right, because you don't want it to go into your main, like you don't want to create a million objects in your main scope. So you create when you're dealing with each of the objects, you create a scope, create the thing, and then that scope goes out of. So yeah, I think like actually like under the handle scope, like before the methods, but in that intro, like a short example that shows defining the handle scope and with the loop, using it in a loop and whatever would probably be a great idea.
Okay. I think the convention that we have is that we put the examples at the end, but I think it would be good to explain maybe in the beginning why. I mean, we say these handles keep an object alive, object making, okay. Oh, well, there's an example right there.
Well, yeah, that is kind of our example. I guess the challenge is it doesn't seem to be quite direct, obvious enough.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can either.
I think a short snippet might be sufficient for the handle scope documentation.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can just put that last example also inside the handle scope doc, and then maybe that would be enough.
Like maybe if it was like, here's an example of using it, and the example is explained in more detail in this link, right?
In this, yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay. I think I'd be able to work on that one as well. It doesn't sound too difficult.
Sounds great. Okay. Any other ones that we should talk about? in the Node add-on API?
I have
Okay,
nothing.
so go ahead.
I have
No.
nothing.
Okay, so I just flipped over here. Let's look at the labels. Yeah, so this has got everything too. I see this one was Legend Cast you added, but I think has got approvals and stuff, right? So
Yeah, this is just a retrospective fix on previous PR, which adds the deprecation code for what we have done to deprecate the behavior of not suppressing the throwing exception in the async callbacks. So it's just a retrospective fixing.
right. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, so that's I think that's well on its way to landing. And otherwise, I don't think I see anything particularly new to pull out this week.
Yeah, I don't have any.
This one I'll mention just because I was doing some experimentation. If like for containers, there's some experimentation with have like WASM bare metal containers. And I'm always like, well, hey, why don't you just run your WASM on Node? And so they were like, well, hey, show us how you do that. So interesting, the proof of concept that was doing that with WASM time uses crun, which is pure C code. So I tried to start to integrate things. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to. I'd have to change the whole project to compile with C++ versus being in C. So I actually have applied this patch, and I'm using that to like experiment with, loading Node as a shared library and just running just enough script code to load some WASM. So just thought I'd mention that as like I'm actually playing around a little bit with that. And it's just like a concrete example of where like the C interfaces really make things a lot easier in some cases, because you can sort of DL load them and load the symbols versus having to link against a whole bunch of things and absorb the build chain of that you get along with that. But otherwise, yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting use case, but I was still thinking about how do we keep API stability for platform integration, since that's most of the engine setups are not guaranteed by node.js as it's maintained in the V8. So that's my thinking of how do we, if we land this, how do we maintain that stability?
Right, and I guess the key things are because in there, like there's a create platform and a create env, right?
Yeah, I can see that we are using many strings and strings here, but the thing is that these strings are not guaranteed to be stable across versions, since V8 can consume different flags and can remove flags when we upgrade in V8.
Yeah, some of these flags, like the only flags I needed to use were like that passes in the node flags. Like I needed to say there's like a flag to turn on the WASI implementation. So that's where I passed those in. These ones, I'm not quite sure what they do.
I think those are supposed to be for arguments that would be passed to like the main script and not the node executable itself.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I ended up didn't use the main script piece. I just used the I and I don't know if it's all working properly or not, but I like create the platform, passing in just the node arguments. I create an environment, and then I use the existing run script method that's already in Node API. And like, I had to do some other things, like, because to get the WASM, I had to read the WASM in, and I just basically poked that in as an object on the global object, and then the script that I run pulls it off and has enough stuff to actually run the JavaScript. Has enough to run the WASM through the JavaScript that runs. But yeah, so is it that these arguments? But again, if these are to the script, that shouldn't be specific to any platform either, right?
I believe that's
Yeah,
correct.
it's about the execution argument, which is the second, third, and fourth argument. Also note about it. It's notable that when Node.js encountered unrecognizable flags, Node.js will just exit with an error and saying that these flags are not recognizable, and I'm done with. I don't know how to deal with it, and so I just exit with non-zero code. So
Yeah,
that's another things that just notable to exposing these flags to a API stable API, I suppose.
but the API would be like it's like it's kind of like the
The actual
today,
ABI,
yeah,
the ABI would be stable because all it is just accepting an array of strings. So it like, I don't think this method would change. What may change would be the engine's underlying implementation of what it does with those arguments. And I think that was something that was brought up somewhere in the vast messages of the conversation in the PR. But I think that was sort of the original pull request, or his design implementation, or his thought process was that, since it's just passing in strings, then it should be considered ABI stable because this actual signature wouldn't be changing across
right.
across time. It would just be the engine's implementation of it, which may change.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But I was thinking about the actual use case out here, since actually since we declared this as a BI stable, and people might just precompile the binary and link it against a, like, say, newer version of Node, since it may just the Node shared library might provide a higher version of Node API version, which it should be provide a similar behavior, or at least to say compatible behavior. But the fact is, Node.js is going to reject that argument and just complaining that this argument is not recognizable since it's being removed in V8. So the binary compiled against a lower version of Node API version will not be able to run with a higher API Node.js shared library declared with a higher Node API version.
Yeah, I think you could probably get into that same problem today if you yeah. I mean, like today, if I could write an add-on, I think. So just like the example code that I'm running now, I could take that code and I could stick it into an add-on today. And then that add-on would run or not run depending on whether Node had been started with the right arguments to allow WASI.
Yeah.
So it's despite using the stable ABI, there still are like how you run Node itself can still actually have an effect on to whether, basically make a requirement on which versions of Node you may or may not run with, which is an interesting. It's kind of like how do you deal with the arguments which are definitely going to affect it. Yeah, I'll have to think some more about that in terms of the, like, if it was sort of the arguments were the concern. I assume like the arguments to Node itself, like those get passed to your script. So it's whether your script can handle them. It's that set of arguments that Node accepts that was the discussion was about.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Were there any other like particular things that like ABI stability wise there was concerns about? I can totally get the like maybe we're not sure what it should look like overall yet, but I just wonder about specific things like you just brought up.
I don't have any yet, but I will definitely comment in the issue if I have one.
Okay. Yeah, I do find this interesting. And so yeah, I think long term, it would be really good for us to have some sort of C API, whether it makes sense as part of the Node API or not. Having some C API makes it much more consumable.
Also, I just like to mention that this will be part of the embedding API, so it will be great to have discussion with folks that are working on them.
Yeah.
And have experience on the embedding API, since, like say, embedding is a different story with the add-on authoring. Like say, Electron Electron had many experience on the embedding, and they have a lot of use cases on embedding, and they might have thoughts on how to shape an easier to use API to embed Node.js in their application.
Yeah, no, agreed.
So I would like to express that how likely an embedding a Node.js would break without how their requirement might how to like say how the possibility is to, like say, they will need APIs other than Node add-on API in order to embed Node.js into their application. Is that to say, is Node API sufficient to embed a Node.js into their application? I think that's the whole point of if it's value to include the embedding API in the Node API as a part of the Node API.
Yeah, no, I agree. It'd be good to get the simple. This seems to like. What was interesting is it seemed to work for the simple case, which is all I needed in what I was experimenting with. It was just like run a very simple script, and like in fact, I can show you the.
Yeah, as a first step, I think it's very interesting. But if the embedding application grows day by day, then if they need APIs other than Node add-on API, then things will change. They will have to either have a approach to convert the node API values to the raw V8 object, or rather they will have to convert all their existing code that based on node API embedding API to the original node.js C++ embedding API.
Yeah.
So I believe those paths are unavoidably burdensome to this embedding authoring, since you either have to break the API stable guarantees, or you have to convert your code base to the more powerful API instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just mentioning because it was interesting in that, and it at least ran the simple use case. I have to test some more things, but I'll probably chime into the issue just saying like, hey, I tried it out, and I think you're right, like trying to understand what beyond, like this is a nice simple interface, and it's like, okay, so what's missing for like maybe the more complicated use cases would be a good thing to understand.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
How would we be able to get some sort of feedback from people that think that this is like, you know, if it satisfies their use case?
I think we'd probably want to reach out to somebody on the Electron team. And, you know, maybe that's like, you know, because they're mentioned, like, see if we can find somebody to just, you know, talk to them, maybe invite them to this meeting, or, you know, have one-on-one or whatever to see if we can get some, they may be able to say, well, yeah, but you can't do blah, blah, and blah, right?
Right, okay.
I mean, I think Anna's point is often they will also need much more control over things like V8. But then in my mind, like once you've gone that far, maybe you should just be using the C++ one, right? There's sort of the line between, we've always done the line of like, if you need access to all sorts of internals and V8 knowledge in particular, right? Like then, you know, we're not going to expose all that through the APIs necessarily, but if you have the 80%, in the case of add-ons, it was the 80% use case, right? So but I think what the discussion is here is if this API is a 10% use case, then it's not necessarily as valuable to expose.
But I think I think there might be some space to explore if embedding, how the possibility is for the embedders to cross the line, let's say, to control how V8 behaves. Let's say, the story for the add-on authors is that if the choice they made to decide if they are going to use Node API or the V8 API is that if they are going to have any hooks into V8 internals. If not, then they, let's say, if they just use bridging the and bridging a external library to the Node.js, then great. Maybe they just need to create a V8 value, JavaScript values. Then Node API is the perfect choice for them, since they are not likely to cross the line to touch the V8 raw APIs. But how would embedders? What is the possibilities for embedders to cross the line? Like say, if embedders have great possibility to cross the line to control how V8 behaves.
Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to like, if all you want to do is run some scripts, that's different than possibly some of the other ones where you're, you know, but that's where I don't have off the top of my head, like in the, what beyond running a script is that you're going to want to do as an embedder, right?
Yeah.
And getting that list would help us understand. I mean, even the run script method we have is a little funny, which is what I use, but it's kind of like your stuff goes into the global scope. And some things that you could normally reference, you have to put this in front of. And so it's a little, even from just the running the script, there is some things where you could say this doesn't quite feel like just go run my regular script, right? That I can run, say, as a something I pass to Node itself. But that might be able, I mean, I think if I could probably get around that, like if we can get the eval function through the globals or whatever, and then you could just eval something. I think you could get around that, but
Yeah. Yeah, I believe building a list on how what an environment will need to build a application will be great to push this forward.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so yeah, I thought I'd mention it. I'll chime in on that issue, just saying, hey, like I was doing this experimentation and I needed a C wrapper, so I tried it out. And then can sort of maybe after that, we can see if there's like people in the issue or whatever that we could sort of start to build that list, because I think that would be interesting.
Sounds great.
Okay. Anything else we should talk about this week before we close out?
I have nothing.
Okay, well then thanks for everybody's time, and we will see you in GitHub and next week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.